Sometimes it's really difficult being transgender, and it's a really difficult thing to transition, but it's worth it, especially if you surround yourself with positive, supportive people.
Good evening and welcome to Inside Out. I'm your host, Kyle Simchuk. Tonight we'll be exploring the transition process that transgender individuals face. I'll be speaking with Elliot, who is currently in the process of transitioning his life from a female to male.
So then at what age did you realize that you wanted to transition? Was this recently?
Yeah. I've always been very sure of my sexuality. I came out as bisexual when I was 11, and I was like, yes, this is something I'm aware of. But I was also very aware of non-heterosexuality at a very young age, and so I wonder maybe if I would have been more aware of the transgender community at that age, if I would have come to that conclusion sooner.
So the main difference between gender fluid and transgender is one is permanent.
Well, that's a misleading thing to say, because transgender is actually an umbrella term for anybody who doesn't identify as the gender they were assigned at birth. So gender fluid people fall in the transgender community. But gender fluid people, some people do choose to transition, but as a trans man, my transition is going to be, I don't want to say extreme, but further along the spectrum than it would be for other people.
When did you first explain this to your family, and what was that like for you?
I'm still in the process of coming out to my parents. I'm not being subtle about it, but I haven't blatantly said, hey, this is a thing that's going to happen. I'm going to start sprouting hair and my voice is going to start dropping. This is a thing. I have fully come out to my siblings because I've always had a very strong relationship with them.
What was their reaction?
It was really funny, actually. I told them both separately, and both individually they both said, I'm not surprised.
What was that like for you, having explaining this to them? I mean, how did you start? How did you start the conversation?
Well, it's been kind of a process because I came out to them as gender fluid before I realized I was trans. So there's been kind of it's been a kind of a gradual process for all of us where I was like, I'm gender fluid, and they're like, cool. And I was like, actually, I'm trans and I want to do this. And they're like, okay, that's fine. But that doesn't mean it was still really nerve-wracking for me, because the difference between saying I'm gender fluid and I like presenting both male and female, but I'm not going to be taking any medical transitionary steps to change this, and saying I'm transgender and I want to start taking hormones and having surgeries.
And you said your parents aren't fully aware. What do you think will be their reaction?
They do know that I'm gender fluid. I don't think they really know what that means. They are aware that I want to legally change my name, but I don't think they're aware of what I want to change it to. They're kind of the type of people where unless you explicitly state something, they're going to ignore that it's happening. I think my mom, just based on previous experiences, is going to drag her feet. She tends to take personal life choices of mine very personally. Maybe that's because I'm her oldest child. I don't know. I don't pretend to understand her. But she'll come around because I know she cares for me very deeply. And my dad is very much of the idea that if I've thought something through and I seem to think that it's for the best for me and I'm not hurting myself, then he wants what makes me happy.
And what do your parents call you? What are they?
I've been going by Ellie for a while. I decided to change my name the summer before I came to WSU, but I thought I was going to change it to Eleanor after my great-grandma, and I was going by Ellie for sure. And so everybody has been calling me Ellie for over a year now, except my mom, who's been dragging her feet, and she's like, you'll always be your birth name to me, I named you. She's really hurt that I want to change my name, and I'm like, Mom, it's not about you. she'll call me Ellie sporadically, but she mostly calls me by my birth name, and my dad will exclusively call me Ellie. Pretty much everybody I know calls me Ellie except for my mother.
Next, Elliot will discuss the trials he faces receiving medication and assistance from doctors.
How long do you expect it to take?
Generally, it depends. Like it takes about 5 years for hormones to stop causing changes in your body, because it's like a second puberty. That's about how long puberty lasts. You get the acne, the weird facial hair, the voice dropping, all that sort of stuff. And then it's just a matter of which surgeries I want to have and when I can afford them and when they fit into my life. So hopefully within that 5 years.
Would you mind going over the cost at all?
Oh, yeah. I'm very blessed in that my insurance actually covers a lot of it. That's one of the first things, like, when I was thinking about this, like, well, shit, I better call my insurance, find out if this is even feasible. I called them. They actually have a transgender group that they ask you to enroll in, and at first I was worried because I was like, oh my gosh, what if this is some gatekeeping thing, because that's a trend that you see in trans healthcare where people are like, we want you to prove how trans you are before we give you any help, which is problematic, but we won't go into that. They were basically like, your prescription will be around $40, which is pretty much the same if I went in and got pills for something. If you ever get surgery, like after your deductible, it'll be a $200 copay, which is insanely cheap, pretty much. So I'm very blessed. My transition is going to be very accessible to me.
Have there been any challenges during your transition? Can you talk about any of those? Right
now, I'm trying to get a letter from my therapist so that I can start testosterone. Because a lot of specialist endocrinologists, people who can prescribe testosterone to you, want to have a letter from a therapist. Not everybody. There's some like consent clinics, informed consent clinics that are like, if this is how you feel and you're sure of that, then fine, we don't need a letter. But a lot of people do ask for that, and that's one of those gatekeeping things I talked about earlier. But I wanted a letter because I feel like the more documentation, the better, just in case. So right now I'm in the process of trying to get that, which is a little frustrating because they want me to go talk to an endocrinologist before they write me a letter, which my therapist says is because they want me to be more informed about the process, and they want me to ask exactly what that person needs a letter to increase my chances of actually getting the prescription.
Is it difficult finding a doctor to prescribe all these hormones?
It is. It was for me, actually, because I wanted to use my family practitioner, the person I've been seeing like for the last 10, 12 years, and I was talking about insurance, and I was like, is this thing we can do? And they called my doctor and asked about it and called me back, and they're like, they're not comfortable doing that, which didn't surprise me too.
I mean, how did that feel for you? Your family doctor that you've been going to for all these years?
Right. It didn't surprise me a lot because it is in a more conservative area of Eastern Washington, but of course it was disappointing. These are people I've grown up with who have been taking care of me, but also it's like, I don't want them to prescribe me something they're not comfortable with and then continue treating me when they're not informed about trans people's health needs, because they are different. So I'll probably be seeing somebody in Spokane or in the Minneapolis area.
Are you comfortable talking about whether you've decided on having a surgery?
I have decided to have top surgery, which is having your breasts removed. I am not going to have bottom surgery. I like my genitals and the way that they look. I'm familiar with them. I think they're pretty great, so I don't plan on getting bottom surgery. And it's not, I think, as common to get bottom surgery as people think it is, mostly because phalloplasty is not a perfect process. Kudos to trans guys that get phalloplasty. Personally, it's not something I want to do.
Mainstream media has played a role recently in shaping the ideas and values society has on the transgender population. Elliot explains some of the struggles he's faced and what influence he believes the media has.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing the transgender community today?
Probably the issue of how transgender women of color are being murdered in large numbers. I think we're up to 17 or 20 in 2015 alone. That's insane. Like, they're just they're practically being mowed down. Like, why is this happening? Why is trans panic still a viable defense in so many states that people can be like, oh, I found out this woman was transgender and I panicked and I killed her. Like, why is that a thing? That's horrible.
Is that only for colored women though? Or?
It's extremely, transgender women of color are probably the most at-risk group for murder, often by intimate partners, for rape, for abuse, for being homeless, for drug addiction, for all of these things, because of like triply disenfranchised. Like, they're queer, they're trans, they're people of color, and they're women. Like, that's about as marginalized against as you can get.
Would you call Kate Jenner a role model for the transgender community? Some people have said, yeah, she is. Others have not.
I think she's done a lot of good things, and I think she's done some really interesting things. I appreciate that she's taken, like, I feel like at every opportunity she's taken a chance to speak out for the trans community when she has that chance. But I also think she's in a very privileged position, like, as a white transgender woman, as a rich transgender woman who's had the chance to have all of these surgeries and all these hormones pretty much at her fingertips. So I'm not sure I'd call her a role model, but she's definitely a high-profile person, and I think the fact that she's using her position of privilege to speak out for the community is commendable.
You know, some people have said that she's just doing this to get money or TV, and I find that hard to believe because of all the, I mean, she's made some pretty permanent decisions, and I think that's just kind of hard to dismiss as just saying, oh, it's just for the money.
I think people who aren't transgender really underestimate what an emotional process coming to terms with your identity is and beginning to transition is. It's emotionally draining, it's emotionally exhausting, even when you're surrounded by supportive people. You question yourself every day, like, is this real? Do I actually feel this way? Is this a decision that I'm gonna make lifelong? I don't think anybody would do that for money. It's not like getting a tattoo. It's completely changing the way that the world relates to you. Because a lot of how you interact with society is related to your gender, of course. As far as like money goes, I think she already has enough money. I think she's doing this because she genuinely believes that this is a way to get her story out and to raise visibility.
How do you sort of comfort yourself in knowing that you are doing the right thing? What's that like for you?
A lot of it is like with the dysphoria that transgender people experience, there's a lot of self-doubt, like, is this actually what I want? Is transitioning gonna fix the way that I feel? And a lot of it is just checking in and be like, well, why are you feeling this way? And yes, then transitioning will help me fix the way that I feel.
For all of us at Inside Out, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.